You know what really makes us mad? Is wasting money on CDs with only one or two good songs.
Yeah. Tell them about punk.
What's up, posers? Welcome to punklottopod. I'm your co-host, Justin Hensley.
I am your other co-host, Dylan Hensley.
And this is the show where we assign our guests a year, and they choose one punk, hardcore, emo, or punk-adjacent album from that year for us to talk about. Today we are joined by Andy Sell, a stand-up comedian, podcast host. He has hosted a number of podcasts over the years, most notably the Unpops music podcast series, Ghoul School, a horror movie history podcast, and Look Good for the Boys, which is another horror movie podcast. Very funny guy. I love his appearances on those shows, and this episode was a lot of fun to talk with him. What are we talking about today?
We are talking about the year 2005, the album The Sunset Tree by the Mountain Goats. A significant record in their discography. Mm-hmm. I think probably one of the most popular albums on their Spotify. I think it's one of their most popular albums overall. An important stage in their career and his career. Is it him or is it a band?
It's both, right? You know, it's like it started just as him, but then it became a band, but then the band is also lots of different people and different stages. So, yeah, it's both. And if you head over to our Patreon, this week we are doing a I'm Listening, where we each go through the albums that we've listened to since the last time we did an I'm Listening. So a little bit going on over there. That's for $1, you get access to all the bonus audio. And for $10, you get access to choose what we talk about. You choose the album we talk about on the show. Oh, I forgot to mention on the show last time, we have a winner for our raffle for the Patreon. I don't know if he wants me to say his name, so we'll just say I've messaged you already, but I just wanted to let everyone else know that we did actually have a winner in that, and I believe they want to come on the show, so we'll have to plan that one out and see what we're going to talk about there. But you can follow us on all forms of social media, Instagram, Twitter, and Facebook at punklottopod, email address punklottopod@gmail.com, and voicemail, which is 202-688-PUNK. And I think that's everything, so enjoy this show with Andy Sell. So we're joined here today with Andy Sell. Andy, welcome to the show.
Hi, thank you.
We're happy to have you here. Looking forward to this episode for a little bit now.
Yeah, me too. I'm excited to be here. I want to say I like your show a lot.
Thank you.
I'm a big fan. I don't listen to a lot of podcasts that are like just people talking about cultural stuff. Like it's a thing it's weird. I mostly do like horror podcasts and stuff now, and I don't like listen to any other horror movie podcasts when people are talking about horror movies, because it's just like I'm not really, it's like that's work. I don't want to, and it's stuff I know so much about and I keep up with so much that I need a break from it sometimes. And I like your podcast. It's like one of my new favorites because it's stuff I'm interested in, but it's also stuff that I don't necessarily keep up with super well. So I get a kick out of listening to it, and I don't know, I love it.
Well, thank you. That's very kind of you to say. Dylan doesn't listen to any podcasts, so
Nope.
Yeah, there's not as much time in our lives as we think. And there are a lot of podcasts, and sometimes it almost feels like, no, fuck you, I'm not. There's albums I haven't listened to. I can't listen to a podcast on this walk around the lake, which is one in a finite number of walks around the lake that I have left.
Yeah, there's definitely a sense of mortality. Whenever I hear a podcast, it's like I don't have many years left.
Yeah.
On this planet. I'm dying.
Yeah, I should call my
Eventually.
mom. I haven't heard her voice lately, and I don't know how many times I'll get to hear that again. So instead of listening to these two people that I would walk away from at an open mic talking about a movie that they have no frame of reference for, I'm going to call my mom instead. No, I'm kidding. I can't talk to my mother. It's a drag every time.
Yeah, my job, I work basically 36 hours in 3 days. So that's where I do a bulk of my podcast listening. So it's just like, I'm at work, I'm a captured audience, so I'm going to listen to other people talk instead of the people I work with.
Yeah, for sure. That's
Yeah, that was really like the peak of my podcast listening, was when I had a job where I was sitting at a desk for like 8 hours, where music, listening to 8 hours of music nonstop, it just becomes a wall of noise. You just can't absorb that much.
yeah.
Well, let's plug some podcasts.
Speaking of,
Yeah, so I became aware of you first through the Unpops network of podcasts, the vast network of podcasts. So many podcasts under that network. I'm trying to think. I don't know. I think I've listened to like every episode of at least the main show. So like I was trying to remember when the first time I heard you on there, but it was probably roughly around the time that you started $3 Pod Y'all.
okay,
The Limp Bizkit pod.
yeah, I think I did. I was on a couple of list casts and a fight cast or whatever that show is called, where you'd argue.
Yeah.
Like I argued with Joe K about M. Night Shyamalan at one point. And I think I might have done the main show once or twice, and then and then I got onto Heart Shaped Pod and $3 Pod Y'all, and then that now it's a thing.
yeah. Now it's a whole thing. So yeah, I guess Heart Shaped Pod was the first show. It was like a Nirvana retrospective podcast, and it was Adam and Travis, and then eventually they had a third co-host who had to leave for reasons.
Yeah.
But so then you came in and took over, and then y'all started joked about a Limp Bizkit podcast. Started $3 Pod Y'all. Was a riot to listen to.
Thanks. Thank you.
Wrapped up Heart Shaped Pod like the rest of the Nirvana discography, and then started Pod the Life, the Korn podcast. Then there was Podcast Supernova, the Oasis podcast, and was that it? And then it shifted into just being called Unpops Music, and you did a Steve Earle season, and we keep like coming up with new. I'm still fighting for a Slipknot. I still really want to do a Slipknot season. I still really want to do a Mustard Plug season. Yeah.
But and I also want to I want to do a Blue Oyster Cult season real bad.
Yeah, that'd be good.
Yeah, we've gone back and forth on a few options for the next season, and I think we've settled on one. Let me knock on this wood.
Yeah.
I think we've settled on one, and we're going to start recording pretty soon. So I'm excited about it.
Any hints? Or I can edit it out if you just want to tell me.
Yeah, well, I mean, it's. I don't know if I'm allowed to say it because I don't. We were supposed to already record, but whatever. It's Fleetwood Mac.
Oh shit! Oh, that'd be a great one. Yeah. Well, if you want me to cut that out, I will. But
I'll ask Adam. I don't know. It's one of those things. I feel like Tom Holland, but like with way lower stakes, and like very few people give a shit, and I'm not nearly as blessed as he is in any regard. So it's not like Tom. I don't know why I even brought him up. He just keeps getting in trouble for spoiling Marvel shit. But
yeah. You didn't sign what do you call it?
NDA.
Yeah, there's no NDAs at Unpops, I don't think. There's just like, if we say somebody's name who's not on the network anymore because they turned out to be a piece of shit, we have to bleep it out.
There were a couple of those.
Yeah, there have been a couple.
Yeah, unfortunately. It happens. Well, the shows are very funny. If you want to hear any of them, I think a couple of them are still up to hear without being a member of the Patreon. I think Heart Shaped Pod and $3 Pod Y'all and Pod the Life are still up, but maybe not the conclusion. Like it's like some of the episodes. So you can try them out. If you like them, subscribe to the Patreon because it's very funny. You have other shows too. You have 2 horror podcasts. What would you? Let's see. Let's do Ghoul School. Is probably the older one of the 2.
Yep. Yeah, Ghoul School, I started in it was a while ago. I don't even know. 2017, 2018, I'm not sure anymore.
Right.
But I had been planning to do it for a while before we actually started putting up episodes. It was actually kind of shitty because I recorded a bunch and then was editing a bunch, and then like literally 2 or 3 weeks before our first episode went up, another podcast started called Ghoul School. And I was like, oh, God damn. But I think they're not around. I think we're still around in there. And now, granted, I'm barely around, but I'm more around than they are. So
yeah.
I'm good with it now.
Yeah, I wonder, like, if you really looked at the number of podcasts that are, like, listed on Apple Podcasts and how many of them are inactive, like, what percentage of, like, that site would drop?
I mean, yeah.
It's a shocking number. It's funny, like, you'll be like a show that you like, it'll go on hiatus, and then they just never come back from the hiatus. It's like, oh, yeah, I have better things to do than talking to a microphone. So.
What? Absurd. I'll not hear of it.
Yeah, and I decided to go to college for it, so there we go.
Hey.
So how would you describe it? It's like a history podcast.
The subtitle of it is a horror history podcast, and it's, the idea was to track certain subgenre, or I guess really subgenre subjects, and themes and movements even in horror film, and like kind of track the history for context, to be like, okay, so this type of subgenre, this type of horror movie that has all this influence, it became a thing because of these sets of precedents, and these are how it this is what else is going on in the world at the time that certain movies are released, or certain movements take hold, and certain trends kind of rise or fall. And we started with found footage. We're still in found footage. I still have not finished the found footage season because, a lot of reasons. But the next, the idea is to continue that once I finish the found footage season, which should be this year, and then continue that. The next season will be slasher movies. And then the next season after that, I want to do silent horror movies.
Oh,
and just talk about the pre-sound era of horror. And and then in the meantime, we're doing extra Dread It episodes, which are, I reach out to somebody, ask them if there's a horror movie they really want to talk about, and then I recommend a B feature for a double feature of a movie they haven't seen that I think pairs well with the movie that they chose. And then they watch them, and then we discuss. And I've been enjoying doing those. I'm having a lot of fun with those.
Those probably seem less research intensive too.
Yeah, that's the other thing.
Yeah,
they're less research intensive, and I still end up doing a ton of research, but it's more conversational, and it's not just like me lecturing into a microphone and then being like, "Okay, Adam, here's the movie we're going to talk about," and then talking about it. We are going to be discussing Adam's favorite, Apollo 18, in the next episode of the found footage episodes. But yeah, so that's kind of what I've been doing with that show.
It's funny you mentioned that pairing idea. There's actually a podcast that I just became aware of. It's called Wine and Cheese, where they pair emo records with like cheesy like B movie horror movie type stuff.
Oh shit. That's cool. They do Vanessa Guerrero and Elijah, is it Taylor? Taylor. They do, Kicking and Screaming, which is another thing where they do, like, they pair horror movies with martial arts movies. Pretty fun thing, I think.
Yeah.
But, yeah, the other show is called Look Good for the Boys.
Yeah.
And it's a horror gossip podcast. And I started that one with my friend Philip in 2021. After moving here to Minneapolis, and he and I were just watching movies a lot together, and I was like, hey, we should do a show where we kind of comment on these things, these aspects of horror movies, and mostly it's just talk about the characters, and I just thought it would be fun to kind of do a thing that's not just like, two people being like, hey, we watched this movie this week, and this is what we think of it. It's a little more focused, and I don't know, I think more fun.
Yeah. Yeah, because I was like, there's so many podcasts out there that it's just like, yeah, we watched this thing this week, which we even have a version of that for our Patreon. So like, which is doing something different is fun.
Yeah, it's great. I mean, whatever you want to do it,
Yeah.
But yeah, I just had this thing where it was like, I want to talk about these things we notice in horror movies, or the way certain characters' relationships are, or like, oh, I like the fashion of this movie,
Yeah.
It's a much more, I think, unique approach.
Yeah. Yeah. Definitely more a different take for sure than just a standard. Yeah. Well, cool. I'll link to all that stuff in the show notes too, and then we'll plug them again at the end and all that good stuff. But awesome. Well, we're happy to have you here, and
I'm excited to be here. I'm always excited when I'm asked to do anything that's not like, and don't get me wrong, I'm excited when I'm asked to do anything.
Yeah.
Like, it's not even, if you want, anybody listening that has a show about horror movies, if you want to talk to me about horror movies, I will talk to you about horror movies. Do not get me wrong. But I also, like, it's nice to be like, hey, what do you think about punk music? Or what do you think about this other stuff that's not, the stuff you spend most of your time worrying about?
Already talking about, yeah. I want to say the reason I had the idea to talk to you actually a long time ago, like, just because I was like, man, anytime he's been on those shows, he always mentions bands that I really like, that nobody else in the room even knows who you're talking about. Like, you name drop Majority Rule in an episode.
Dude, so good. So good.
And I was like, well, that's a reference for me, and that's it.
Yeah, it's weird. It's kind of like I went out to a horror trivia thing one night wearing a City of Caterpillar shirt.
Yeah.
And a guy and it's like, if I were wearing a fucking, David Bowie shirt or a Beatles shirt, like, who gives a shit?
Right.
But like, you see someone with a City of Caterpillar shirt, you're going to be like, fuck yes, City of Caterpillar. Like, because me and 6 other people know what that is in this zip code,
Yeah.
Like, I went to a Michael's or a Hobby. It wasn't a Hobby Lobby. I think it was a Michael's to buy some stuff once. And the cashier was wearing an Orchid shirt. And I was like, oh, yeah, Orchid. And she was like, Orchid? I was like, hell yeah, I got a Page 99 tattoo. And she's like, can I see it?
Well, yeah, because there's something about whenever it's something niche or like less popular and like someone else out in the world has that, like, I've signaled to other like-minded people to like, well, I have to say something. I can't just be like, nod and walk, like.
What's that guy nodding at? Maybe he has a neck problem.
I think he hurt his neck. Do you have a headbanging related neck injury?
We went to, Justin, say what you were going to say.
Oh, are you going to say what I think you're going to say about the convention?
Yeah, we went to Heroes Convention in Charlotte, and I wore a Frotus shirt, and like 5 people commented on it.
Yeah.
Versus like all the other guys who were like, I'm going to wear my new Wolverine shirt to the Heroes Convention that like no one said anything about. Because duh.
Yeah, it's this thing where there's like, because there's, the only other thing I've noticed it with is, and this is also, I mean, it's not that specific, but like Iowa stuff. Specifically, I will say, if I ever wear like a shirt that says Spirit Lake or Okoboji on it, and I go outside, someone will come up to me and be like, holy shit, Okoboji. Okoboji? Because it's this little resort town in Iowa, the Iowa Great Lakes. And it's like, but yeah, Iowa stuff too. If I wear a University of Iowa shirt, like, I'm going to run into an Iowan. And I'm saying this as someone when I lived in California, not necessarily just, I mean, Minnesota, throw a rock, you'll hit an Iowan. But when I lived in California, I mean, same thing. Tons of Iowans out there. But and it's the only other thing I've noticed that with, where it's that kind of like oh, I have to say something. Like, I can't just appreciate this person. Like, I have to be like, no, we're in this together. We've been in the pit together, man.
I will say, though, the shirt that I've worn that got me the most comments I've ever experienced in my life, I had a guy literally chase me across a park in Nashville to talk to me. And I was just like, keep walking, keep walking. He's just saying like, hey. Like, he followed us all the way across the park in Nashville. And just like, and then he caught up to us because eventually I guess he just started running I was just like, God damn it. We're at stairs now. We're going to get attacked or mugged or something. And then he's like, I like your Goonies shirt. I was like, Goonies? I bought this at Target. This is not a special shirt.
What is this, like the 5th highest grossing movie of 1985 or something? What?
For some reason, that shirt has given me more I stopped wearing it. Like, I got more every time I would go to a store, somebody would be like, hey, I like your Goonies shirt.
Here's the thing, though. Goonies is kind of like, I mean, it's a movie about the underdogs, right? It's sort of it's a punk rock story in a lot of ways. So I feel like it's that same kind of thing where when you feel like, I don't know, like we're outcast together, and it doesn't really wash because, Goonies, Steven Spielberg, Robert Zemeckis, right? Like, it's...
Yeah.
Come on, everyone knows that movie, but I feel like the people that like really identified with it when they were kids, it's like, oh, that's a part of you forever. I mean,
it is one of those movies that is like extremely popular that people make it part of their personality in the way that a niche interest would be.
Yeah. And it's Pacific Northwest, so it's got that going on too. Like, I feel like people in the Pacific Northwest feel like they're banded together, maybe somehow. I don't know. I don't mean to make generalizations about the people of the Pacific Northwest.
But I guess you're not getting that, I guess, with a Star Wars shirt. Like, somebody's not just, like, following you everywhere, even though...
Yeah, probably. I mean, I feel like in, like, 1983 or something, if you were wearing a Star Wars shirt, that would be the thing where someone looks at you and goes, hey, we're the same, you know? But, now it's just like, oh, you mean the most popular thing on the planet. Great.
Right. Yeah. Yeah, and it is funny. But shirts will definitely do that where you get comments. That's fun.
Yeah. Anytime I wear a Majority Rule shirt or a City of Caterpillar shirt or whatever, it's like, it's the people that see it and know it will let you know that they know it. And I think that's good. I think that's beautiful. I think I would be, if I saw you in a Frodus shirt, I would be like, fuck yes, Frodus. And then immediately do the thing where you rattle off the other, like, do you know Wayful? Do you know Page 99? Do you know, like...
Yeah.
Oh, and if you're really cool, you're like, oh, I saw them play a show at so-and-so, and
I do like it when, like, the little Scrams babies come to me with the, like, I say that, like I don't see anyone or talk to anyone, but when I used to, like, for example, the cashier at Michael's, I think, was probably 20-something, and was like, fucking Page 99, I was like, yeah, I saw him.
Yeah.
No big deal.
I actually, like, I hang out with a guy who saw everybody during that time period, and, like, he tells stories about Page 99 specifically, like, oh yeah, they blew a breaker in his house like 4 times, and then the cops showed up and they said, fuck you, we're still playing, and then he got broken up.
I will tell you, that last show they played at the basement, that church basement in DC, was pretty fucking nuts. This is probably the most insane I've ever seen, like, a group of people at a show.
I was lucky enough to go see them on the reunion little, like, mini thing they did in Richmond. It was them and Majority Rule.
Was that a Best Friends Day, or was this later when, like...
It was the later one, like 20, I don't know, 17, 18, something like that.
I saw them when they came to LA, when they were, like, touring with that.
Yeah.
Amazing. Just amazing.
Yeah. It was insane. Like, I was like, I can't imagine this many people. Like, it was like 10 people on stage. They were in Richmond, so literally all their friends were there, but like... I can't imagine that in a house. Like, how was that even a thing?
Yeah. I mean, well, the band itself is going to take up half the room in a house.
Yeah. And then I think it's funny that Majority Rule is, like, on the other side is, like, a 3-piece.
Yeah, they're
like,
a 3...
the tightest.
The first time I saw them was at a record store in Albuquerque. And the whole time I was like, how are these 3 guys making all this fucking noise? Like... Yeah. Like, I'd never heard a 3-piece before do that, you know?
Right. Dense sound, like just a full sound. And
just all the lights off with that like desk lamp or whatever shining up on Pat's face, just making him look evil as fuck. Like, chills.
Have you seen No Man yet?
I haven't. I really want to. I'm really dying to see them, because you listen to that record, Erase, and it's like, I didn't think Majority Rule could be better than they were, but here it is, and they are. It's like, Yeah, I'm really dying to see them. I think they're coming. Either they're coming here or they've already come.
Yeah.
But I'm not going to shows right now.
Yeah.
And it's killing me because Municipal Waste was just in town and I missed that. The Mountain Goats were just in town and I missed that. Like,
I've been to 2 or 3 shows since basically the pandemic started, and every time it just feels weird. Like even like, you know, I was safe, wore my mask the whole time. You know, nobody got sick in my, you know, group, but like it was just still very much like I didn't feel 100% comfortable yet.
Yeah.
It was,
I had friends play shows, you know, like not long after the vaccine stuff, and it was like, okay, this is probably the 2-week window where I should be going to shows.
yeah.
And I didn't.
Yeah.
And then, I don't know, then I had friends playing shows like late last year, and everybody that went to the show got fucking COVID, and it's like, well, now I don't feel great. And here's the thing, even going out anywhere else I go now, no one's wearing masks.
Nope.
And I just like, I don't know if they're mandating at the clubs here, at the venues here, but I don't know what it is. I don't know when I'm going to feel comfortable in like a crowded space again in that way.
Yeah.
You know? Like,
We went into I just went into a photo store around the corner to buy some cheap cameras for a trip that we're going on. And it was so weird. I walked in and there were like 3 employees. There was no customers in the store. They were all wearing masks. Like that was jarring to me to be in a room where everyone was wearing masks again. I'm like, whoa, I don't remember the last time this happened. It was probably a year ago.
Yeah.
Which means that like it means that some people are paying attention. I think I've noticed an uptick in the last month of people wearing masks again. I still say it's like 95% no masks.
Yeah.
And then like the other 5% is usually the employees of wherever you're going into, because they're like, God damn it, I don't want these assholes getting me sick. But
Yeah, exactly. Well, that's my other. I mean, for a while, my whole thing was, well, as long as the employees at places are wearing masks, I'm going to wear a mask too, because that right there, you know, I'm like showing them the respect.
Yeah.
But now I go places and even the employees aren't wearing masks, and I'm like, I'm still going to wear them though. I'm still going to wear them.
yeah, who knows when this fucking shit's gonna be manageable? I don't know.
Yeah.
We'll see.
I mean, it's just the like, you know, the revelation that Omicron is actually not mild.
Yeah.
In any way, is it milder than the original? And there's now we're on BA5 or something, and it's even more contagious. And like my feed for the last like probably 8 months or something has just been steadily, just constantly like every day, at least 3 people in my feed like got COVID for the last 8 months. So it's like, I know no one's not getting, like everyone's still getting it.
Yeah.
And I had it in 2020 and I'm not getting it again. I'm not. I can't. I'm not doing that again. Fuck
Not
that.
until it's like evolved to the point where it is just a, you know, flu or
not
cold,
until we
you know?
get the 5G version.
Yeah.
Like, I want
These 4G vaccines aren't enough.
Yeah.
I actually went and got boosted maybe in May, like a second booster, because they were like, people, you can get a second booster, it was like 6 months after or something like that, your last booster.
Yeah.
And I was like, sure, I'll try. And the woman like giving it to me was like, I think this is just supposed to be for elderly. And I was like, I'm immunocompromised. I mean, I am technically. I'm an overweight person, so I'm on the immunocompromised list. But it's just like, even them, they're like, are you sure?
Well, the thing is they made, they're like, right after a certain point, people stopped, you know, so it's going to go to waste. So you got to get it if you can get it, you know. I haven't gotten a second booster.
Yeah.
Because I'm, you know, I don't know why I was going to say I'm waiting for someone to tell me what to do, but that's clearly not going to fucking happen at this point. I mean, they don't even care. All right, I'm not going to.
What do I do, Joe?
Yeah. I mean, talk about a guy who's basically like, okay, so you don't want the job anymore. You just don't want the job. You can't wait. Every day you say something new that tells me you're trying to get fired.
Yeah.
Like, it's like me when I worked at the video store. Like, it's you're waiting for someone to come and take this away from you.
It's like, Joe, you still got 2 years on this clock. What are you doing?
Yeah. Oh man, I won't. I promise. But,
Yeah.
But I miss shows. And I wasn't even going to shows anymore. This is the thing. I'm old and tired now.
Yeah.
And the last show that I went to, I think, was Page 99 Majority Rule. And maybe Carly Rae Jepsen was either after that or before that. I don't know. But sometime around then, I went to see Jawbreaker. And I left halfway through their set because I was so tired. They didn't go on until like after 11 or like 11 p.m. or something. And they I heard Save Your Generation. I heard the songs I wanted to hear. And then I was like, okay, now I have a headache. I want to go to sleep. I don't drink anymore. I'm getting out of here and going to bed.
That reminds me, like, I went and saw Teenage Fan Club, and like I was like, I bought tickets months before, and I was like, well, I'm gonna go, but my plantar fasciitis is really flaring up right now, and this show is not fun to watch.
Yeah. Yeah, I'm old and tired, but I'm still like, now I'm like, shit, give me a pit that I feel comfortable in. Like, give me Bear versus Shark again, or any other show where I can really just go nuts. And let me just kill myself. Like, I'll just go in there and I'll die, and they'll carry my body out, and it'll be fine.
He pitted too hard.
Yeah, he died doing what he loved, ruining his spine to power violence.
Well, let's shift into the rest of the format of the show. So, basic premise is we assign our guests a year, and they choose one punk, hardcore, emo, or punk-adjacent album from that year for us to discuss. And before we get to the album you selected, let's talk about the year that I assigned you. So I gave you the year 2005, and you gave me a real big list of options that you were thinking about.
Yeah, I can't. I'm bad with decisions. If it's not like an immediate life or death, like significant decision, I get overwhelmed very easily, and it's tough for me to like settle on things. This is why I think Adam doesn't like having me on Listcast, because I come on, I'm like, right off the bat, I've got 20 options. I know I was only supposed to bring 5, but I have 20, so I'm sorry. But it's just I had a lot. and the thing is, when you assigned me 2005 too, I was like, well, thank God it's not one of the rough years. Like, thank God it's not 2004, where my brain would be bleeding out of my head right now because, with the indecision. But I was still like 2005. I was like, this will be easy enough, and still I was like, I can't pick.
Well, there's like we've been doing this show long enough to the point where it's like whenever we don't have a guest, we're the ones who pick. So then we kind of have to do this thing where it's like, all right, I can pick the obscure or I can pick the popular thing. And a lot of times we side with like the popular thing just because we're like, look, at least somebody might listen.
Yeah.
Because otherwise you're going to hear me talk about this like obscure ass like screamo record that no one has heard since 2007.
Well, yeah, you get into that mindset too, the podcaster mindset, right? Of like, well, what's going to be the draw? Is it going to be me? Is it going to be the guest? Is it going to be the subject? Like, and of course, the perfect thing is to have it be all three, but you're never quite certain. And I almost went with a really obscure one, I think, for this, and then I ended up going with something more popular. But yeah.
By the way,
it was an embarrassment of riches.
When you brought that up, it's like the combination of you, the host, the guest, and whatever it is you're talking about. Have you figured out what matters? Because I still don't know at this point.
I don't think anyone knows. I don't think it's crazy. I have episodes of Ghoul School where it's like, there's the one episode, the most popular episode is a pretty obvious one because it's the one that gets like, it's the longest one, and it's the one that gets every so often someone will tweet about it and be like, hey, shit, this episode is, in depth. But then there's episodes where it's like, I don't know why this one is the one more people. And then there's episodes where I'm like, but I have this guest who's and it's still the numbers aren't as good as this episode where I don't think this guy's ever been on a podcast before, but it's the second most popular episode. And it's like, it's all a mystery. Who knows?
Yeah. It's like, it's bizarre. Like our number one most listened to episode is a Dropkick Murphys episode where we had no guest. It was just us. I thought
it was a gimmick episode.
Yeah, it was
Two.
like our St. Patrick's Day episode, and we weren't very nice about the record either, and it was just like it's still our most listened to episode.
It's
and
weird.
It's like, the only thing I could chalk that up to is it was like the newest episode we had done right before lockdown started, so maybe it had to do with everybody's bored at home.
Yeah. Yeah, it
That's
could be
the
that.
only thing I could think of. But
I think that, one of the most popular Ghoul Schools is, I think, a similar thing where it's like it was right before shit got locked down, or maybe right
Weird.
after. I don't know.
who knows?
Yeah.
It's a mystery.
Look, the world is a terrifying place, and nothing is ever certain.
All we know is we need to pivot to Reels now. That's where all the hits are at.
I'm going to get on TikTok and fuel a conspiracy. That's what I'm going to do. That's how I'm going to get clout.
So 2005, you said, was actually like an easier year than something like 2004. So what are some of the options you were considering before you made your final selection?
Well, I have 19 of them written down here. No, I'll go through a few because there were a lot of really good. And scrolling through too some of the stuff that came out that year. It's like, wow, I forgot entirely about this record, and I would go listen to it and be like, holy shit. Actually, I do love Circa Survive. Like, what? It's stuff I've forgotten about is all over that year because that was a weird year for me. It was a very transition year for me, just in general, both in music taste and in my life. Weird how those usually coincide. But I was kind of coming out a little bit more of the like hardcore power violence screamo stuff that I was listening to, and getting more into like indie rock and some more mellower things. But God, one record probably the first one I should say is Bear vs. Shark Terror Hawk. Like,
Hell yeah.
That's one of those records. That's one of the few records from that year that like I got it the day it came out. I got the one copy that the Hastings in Santa Fe, New Mexico got in stock because a friend of mine worked there and I had him grab it for me. And just, front to back, that record is perfect. There's not a moment wasted on it. It's all killer, no filler. It's every time I listen to it, it's better. And I appreciate it more. And Jesus Christ, but here's the thing. I don't think I'm the guy to talk about that record. Like,
you mentioned that.
One, it's not my favorite Bear vs. Shark record. My favorite is Right Now. You're in the Best of Hands, blah, 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 blah.
Same, yeah.
That record, still, I like it better than Terror Hawk. But also I feel like Terror Hawk is one of those records that, like, somebody who really knows music should be the person to talk about that. And I know what I like, and I know some terms. I've been in bands. I've played music, but I'm not like a music nerd enough to be able to like pinpoint exactly why Terror Hawk shreds so fucking hard. Like leave that to a scientist. I'm not a scientist. All I know is that, hey, the rocket went to the moon. That's what I can tell you about Terror Hawk. I can tell you that when he goes SUNDAYMOR and ING, I fucking lose my shit when he does that. And that's what I can tell you about Terror Hawk. But beyond that, it's going to be a pretty short conversation.
Yeah, it is funny that that band had such a short career. Just 2 LPs and like an EP, which the EP has like half the same songs as the first record.
Yeah. That's another one that, like, I didn't see them live when they were first around. Like, they were around, they broke up, then they had a couple reunion shows, and I went to see one of those, and it was mind-blowing. I was in the pit the whole time.
Yeah.
Like, probably the last time I can say I was in the pit the whole time.
I've yet to see any of those reunions, which they do them randomly. They're not, like, a lot of them. I have seen Bars of Gold, though. So
see,
that was really
I
cool.
really want to see Bars of Gold, like, because they're great too, you know.
Yeah,
yeah.
Which,
seeing Bars of Gold was almost like seeing Bear vs. Shark for me.
Yeah,
it was like it felt like what I imagined seeing Bear vs. Shark would feel like.
Probably, I mean, I would imagine so. Yeah, it's just like, I mean, it was just sweaty, energetic, a feel good, like just like what it should be, what this music should be. that's what seeing Bear versus Shark was, and I imagine Bars of Gold. It's got to be the same. Like they're another band once. So I had this comedian friend Kevin O'Brien who used to do this show called Taking Back Monday at this bar in Denver where he would just DJ punk rock, hardcore, emo, like pop punk all night every Monday. And I went to guest DJ a couple times, and one night he was like, because he would have me on guest DJing with him, and he'd be like, all right, don't play all screamo when you're on, because I'll do that. I will fucking get on there and I'll be like, all right, here we go. Hope you fuckers like Lick Golden Sky, because that's all you're getting. But I would have to like fight for songs sometimes with him. And one time I was like, I put on Bear versus Shark, and he was like, are you sure, man? And I was like, hell yeah, dude. And I put it on, and this guy at the bar, the second the song came on, this guy who was like at the bar kind of like sort of just like hanging out, not really, just I exploded, just like leapt out like Pinocchio coming to life, like just he was shot by lightning and just lost his mind and was like, the fucking Bear versus fucking Shark. So it's another one of those things where it's like, you know, not a lot of people in this room are going to get this, but the ones that do are really going to get it.
Yeah,
it elicits propulsive energy. It really that band is just it's 10 all the time.
I remember the first time I heard them was my friend Sean was listening to an Equal Vision sampler on his portable CD player Walkman Discman, and he was like, "Andy, you got to check this out." And yeah, from the opening of the song, I think it was "Buses No Buses." Was the song that was on the sampler, and it was just like, shit.
That's such a good one too.
Yeah.
I think I was in like a coffee shop in like Savannah once, and like the guy working there was playing a Bear vs. Shark record, and I was just like, Bear vs. Shark? You're playing?
Yeah. So good. So yeah, Terror Hawk was definitely one that's like, you know, I was in there on the ground floor when that record came out, and I loved it all that year and into the future, but I don't feel like I'm the guy to talk about it. I'm not the person for that album. I think it's an album for me, but I am not the one for this show. And then, gosh, what else? Well, I guess I should probably tell you the one that I really wanted to do, that I considered right up until changing my mind, was more obscure, Menegwar, I Was Born at Night. And it's another one of those ones where, like, not a lot of people I know it. But the people that do, it's like my friend Zach Peterson is a comic, really great dude, has been in some bands himself. Like, we went on tour together doing stand-up, and he put it on in his car while we were driving, and I was like, you like Menegwar? You know Menegwar? You know this band? And he was like, hell yeah, this is the best indie rock record ever made. And I was like, I knew we were friends for a reason. Because I remember when they played, and I went to see them in Denver when I was living there after I'd moved, after this record came out, and I couldn't get anyone to come with me. Like, nobody knew who I was talking about. And I was like, okay, well, I guess I'll go by myself. And it was still a great time, but it's an incredible record. But the thing is that I was listening to your Tragedy episode, and the guest that you had said something about, like, well, I can't talk about the Weaker Thans because it's so specific, it's so personal, it's so emotional that it might alienate, like, the audience. And that's the thing, like, I mean, obviously that's what a lot of this music is for. That's what it's about. It's like the more specific you get, the more personal you get, the harder people will relate to it. But Menegwar in particular, that record, like, it's definitely my favorite record of 2005. It's the record that meant the most to me from that year at that time. But it's also probably like, I don't think I can talk about that record without just getting super confessional about my 2005, like what that year was like for me. They're inseparable. And another record that was like that was Golden Bird's Transamerica. And both of them had so much, like, I was going through a rough relationship patch. I was going through a move. I was quitting my dreams to go work a job I didn't really want to work, to try and, like, be a productive, you know, young man. And it just, like, so much of that record, of both of those records, are, like, tied up in the turmoil that I was going through at that time, that like I don't think I could talk about the songs or the records, the albums, without like just putting everybody off, just being like. And now I'm going to start crying for 10 minutes. So it would be like, it's like making you listen to a poem, like if someone goes to a poetry reading, great. They're there for that. That's beautiful. And I love poetry. Don't get me wrong. I think that if you make fun of poetry, you're homophobic and misogynist and a monster. But but like, don't just share your poetry with somebody that you like just met. Like that's not what this is for. So I feel like that's what talking about I Was Born at Night would be. But if you can find it, you should definitely listen to it. House of Cats is such a great fucking song. It's a banger, and it's a great album.
There are so many different, with this show we've discovered there's so many different approaches you can take with it. Like you can go with like the safe bets. Like, yeah, we're going to talk about a Fugazi record because Fugazi are gigantic. Which, by the way, it took like 140 episodes to actually get somebody to pick a Fugazi record.
And then we talked for like 2 hours about Fugazi.
Yeah.
And then we were like, we could still talk about Fugazi.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But
I mean, I could talk about Fugazi, right? Like, they're a band I never got to see live, and I'm still pissed about it because I was working at a video store and I couldn't get my shift changed, and I was so mad. We had a customer that was going to see them. He came in because I was the one dude that worked at this video store with like a mohawk, so. He came in and like he's like, oh, punk rock, let's talk about Fugazi. And he's just like, they're coming to town next month. Are you going? I'm going. And I was like, I'm going to try. And then the day of the show, he came in to rent a movie. And I was like, what are you fucking doing here, man? You're going to see Fugazi. And he was like, I know, but wife is sick. Like, so we might just stay in and watch a movie. I was like, I'm not renting you anything. I refuse to rent you. Go to see Fugazi. Like, I'm not renting you a movie. I don't care if I get fired. I'll cancel. I'll delete your account right now. Go see Fugazi. What are you doing? Like, rent a movie for her, and then you go see Fugazi. Like, do it for me, because I'm not going to get... And then, of course, no more Fugazi, so...
It's one of those things...
the argument to her, right?
Yeah.
You could have been like... I've heard this recently, and I don't know if it was a guest who said it or if I heard it on another show, but they basically were like, go to the show. You don't feel good, you don't want to do it, but it's somebody, like, you... want to see, like you really want to see, not just like, yeah, I don't want to go to my buddy's open mic, like that kind of thing. You don't have to do that, but like,
don't support your friends.
No, go see Fugazi.
You can see him anytime.
Yeah.
That's just like my new motto, though. It's just like, just go to the show.
Yeah.
You're not going to remember that you went to work. You're going to remember you didn't go see Fugazi.
Yeah, exactly. I have four big regrets as far as like shows that I missed because of work or whatever reason. Like 2 of them were work, 2 of them were people I was dating. Fugazi was work. I missed Rage Against the Machine. Actually, that one doesn't hurt as much anymore because then I ended up seeing them at Rock the Bells much later. But it was a thing, they were touring with U2 and I could have gone, but I had to work and I couldn't get my shift change and I missed it, whatever. But like I missed REM at the Hollywood Bowl with The National and Modest Mouse on their last tour.
Yeah.
Because of someone I was dating. And then before that, though, in like 2000, I missed Discount. Discount played at the Warehouse 21, the local venue in Santa Fe. As a show my friend put together. And they announced on stage that night that they were breaking up. And the thing is, it was a show on Valentine's Day. And my girlfriend at the time was like, and I've been telling her for a week, I'm going to see Discount. Like my friend Molly's putting on this show, Discount's playing, and I fucking love Discount. I've never seen them live. And then the day of, she's like, so what are we doing for Valentine's Day? And I was like, I'm going to see Discount. You totally can come with me. And she's like, you're not going to a punk show on Valentine's Day. And I conceded to her. And I regret the shit out of that now. Because they broke up after that, and I never got to fucking see Discount.
It's not a real holiday.
Right? Like, we can do a thing tomorrow. Like, it'll be just as special. It'll be more special if it's just about us, But, like...
Instead, fucking... I'm gonna go out on the night that every other couple is going out and get lousy service because the server has to work on a holiday.
Yeah. Stupid. So stupid. Anyway, choose the show, not your relationship. I don't mean that. But yeah, go to the show. Go to the show.
Yeah, like don't be like, well, then if you go to the show tonight, it's over. Then be like, all right.
Yeah, well, that's the thing. If someone's gonna say that to you, that right there means, okay, this is gonna be over anyway. Like you don't know that when you're 20 years old, right? Like I now in my 40s, I know. Well, for one, I'm in a relationship with someone who would never fucking do that. Like everything would be a conversation. But when you're 20, you don't know that, and someone gives you an ultimatum. It's like, oh well, okay, I guess you know.
I guess a better example would be like, you really should go to your kid's recital.
Yeah.
No, I want to go see.
Well, definitely go to your kid's recital.
Yeah,
I mean,
you gotta. It's the family obligations. Then it's the show.
yeah.
In case I'm sure the audience knows this.
Please don't take life and relationship advice from this
From
podcast.
3 podcasters.
Yeah. Please don't. Please don't. There were a lot of other records in 2005 too. Transistor, Erase All Name and Likeness is another fucking great album. Gospel. Oh, God, that gospel record.
Did you listen to the new one that just came?
It's so fucking good.
I was shocked when that record came out. I was
Yeah.
like, there's a new fucking gospel record?
Yeah.
I listened to the gospel record from 2005 this month because it came out in like June of 2005. This past month. So, and like I had seen that record cover and heard about that band for years and years and never listened to it. And I listened to it and I'm like, what the fuck is this?
It's so
This drumming alone is worth listening. If it were just the drums, I would listen to it.
There's this thing about that era of, you know, what you call screamo, hardcore power violence, fucking I don't, you know, scrams, you know,
post-hardcore,
whatever you want to call it, where it was like all of these really incredible bands that all sounded different. Like that's the thing. When the Scrams revival or whatever was going on in like 2012 or I don't know, that 2011, that area, like there were a lot of great bands, but at the time, like a lot of them kind of sounded the same to me. Whereas if you look at these bands that were like Hot Cross, Page 99, Majority Rule, Gospel, like City of Caterpillar, they were all doing pretty different things with it. They all the bands stood out for different reasons. I think that we're getting a lot more of that now. A lot more of bands that are bringing like a unique bent to what they're doing. But yeah, that gospel record, part of that rich screamo tradition of like a band that would get together, release one LP, maybe an EP, and then fucking disappear. and it always felt unfair to me that was the only gospel record we got. You know, I was like, Majority Rule, we got 2. Page 99, we got several.
Yeah.
Even Hot Cross managed to do 3 full lengths. Like, what do you? Come on, give us more. And I remember one day it was one of those records that like I was working a PA job shortly after I moved to LA, and I had to drive all over LA like a whole day work, and that was the only CD I had in my car. And I listened to it the entire time, and the entire time I was like, I'm never gonna get sick of this. It's just brilliant. It's so good.
Oh, let's see if we can play one album screamo. Who's another good one like that? Dylan, what your favorite? Stop It, the Richmond band.
Oh, Stop It.
Yeah, like
So
like an EP and an album.
Yeah, like a one and done type band. Let's see what else.
Well, City of Caterpillar only had the one
LP.
Right.
self-titled studio album, and then they had the demo and live recordings and some splits.
Like almost all the Sarah Kirsch bands were like Torches to Rome or like
Bread and Circuits
Bread
was
and
one
Circuits.
LP.
Like it's just like one thing that they did, or like an EP and a split or something like that.
Yeah, To Dream of Autumn, I think only did one, and they were pretty great.
Feels like there was in that like 97 to 2007. That's probably like the perfect like era of that. Like we did 1 or 2 things and that's it. And then we all started new bands with like all the same people.
Yeah. Well, that's the I mean, especially if you're talking about like the Virginia, North Carolina, DC scene. it's like these bands are all in, they break up, but it's like 4 of those guys are in another band with 2 other guys from this other band. Like it's all the same. It's not all the same. You know what I'm saying, though. It's like it's an incestuous community.
Right.
It's a very like tight knit community, and they're all kind of. I mean, Manegwar, that was a Magic Bullet release.
Yeah, Magic Bullet had like that's like all of the bands on Magic Bullet were those kind of bands that just like, yeah, one and done, and that's it.
Yep. Yeah. I guess the other record, I should say this, the other record I was going to do, and like whatever, there was a lot. Silver Mount Zion had a great record that year. Modern Life is War had a great record that year. Mile Marker, Bright Eyes had 2. Day in Black and White, Sinaloa. Like there's a bunch of great records from that year. But like the other one, and this is probably, I shouldn't be saying this, but that I've now realized is maybe the one I should have picked. But hey, here's the thing. I have ADHD. I have, and all the shit that comes with it, like rejection-sensitive dysphoria and imposter syndrome and anxiety and depression and all this nonsense. Like, so, again, making decisions is difficult for me. But one thing that has helped me, if there's anybody listening that struggles with this, is this mantra I have discovered, which is none of this matters. None of this matters, because I am the person who goes to a restaurant and like it's for years, decades even, my friends and family, this is the running joke with me, is that every time I order something, it takes me forever to order, and then I order, and then immediately I should have got the other thing. And I do that with everything, and I did that with this, but hey, it's fine. None of this matters. I'm here. It's chill. Y'all are chill. We're gonna talk about the record I did pick. And so it's not a catastrophe that I did not pick Propagandi's Potemkin City Limits. It is not a catastrophe. Everything is fine. It's a terrific record. Also, though, not my favorite Propagandi record.
Yeah.
That would be Today's Empires, Tomorrow's Ashes.
Yeah, that's probably right.
But so if you ever pick 2001 for me, that's what you're getting.
What I was going to say is like, well, look, yeah, you said none of this matters. Like that's your mantra. But also it's like, you can just come back. Like,
yeah. That's the other thing, right? Is it's like, again, it doesn't matter because I can just come back if you'll have me. If this isn't a complete, sacrilege.
If I could book guests for a month straight, I would. Like, just like, all right, this is your residency on the show now. Saves me some booking time.
Look, and I would do it. That's the thing. I would do it in a heartbeat because
we'll keep that in mind.
Yeah. If you want to do a Propaganda retrospective, because that's another thing. They're another band that like were very important to me at a very pivotal time in my life, and just like throughout the years, my relationship with them has changed and evolved, and I've come to appreciate like Potemkin City Limits. I've been listening to that a lot this last week, and it just gets better every time I hear it. Like, it's just so great. It's I don't even know what to say. Okay, there's the one part that has a slur, which is like, I get it. I get why it's in here. I get what you're trying to do. You're still saying the word, and we could have a whole discussion about the problem here and on either side the debate about it. But it's still like that's a little bit of a mar. That's a little bit of a wrinkle for me on this record. But it is great.
Does he still use it?
And
he doesn't use it.
I don't know. I don't think so. I haven't seen Propaganda live in a very long time.
He also strikes me as the type of person who'd be like, "Oh yeah, that was dumb. I shouldn't have done that."
I mean, yeah, the minute you call him out for it, he'd probably
Oh,
"Oh
yeah.
yeah, that was shitty, and I don't do it, and it's stupid." And it's one of those things. Like I get why because he's the perspective of the song, but when you know what you know about again the master's tools and the master's house, etc., like you can come up with a more poetic way to say it. You can come up with a more clever way to represent this position you're trying to damn, especially considering that the song it's in is just a very serious song about like which is nothing new. Propaganda wrote a serious song.
Well,
get the fuck out.
The first record has a lot that aren't.
Well, yeah. But even the Todd songs on this record are really good. I love all the Todd songs, all the I Spy style songs. But Yeah, that song is very serious. So it's one of those things where it feels a little sharper when you hear it in that song too, because it's a song about like, I can't mourn dead American soldiers because I know what American imperialism is.
Yeah.
But anyway, yeah, Potemkin City Limits is another one that I think about now, and I'm like, man, this would be one I could talk about, but
well,
I didn't choose it.
Everyone stay tuned for Andy's residency starting next month. We'll just go through all of 2005 with you. But we've gone an hour, so let's talk about the actual record that we are supposed to be talking about today.
I don't know. I still want to talk about the Warriors and the Hold Steady and
or that Lucero record.
Oh yeah,
I actually listened to that today after the one we talked about. I was just like, God, I love this. I love Lucero. One of my favorite bands ever. So
they're really good live too.
Yeah,
that's a thing I think all the bands we are talking about have in common.
Yeah, it translates like in the space when you're recording, even just that energy of them live. Because even if it's like a simple band where they don't move around a lot, like Lucero doesn't move around a ton.
The one guy sits down. Most of the show.
I watched I've talked about this before, but
not the drummer. The drummer, of course, sits.
Yeah. No, I've watched the bass player on multiple like songs take his bass off, lean it against the amp, and like go like do like a one hit on a cigarette, which I thought was really weird. He was doing one hitters on a cigarette on a stage because he's like, I'm not allowed to smoke in here. One, and he puts it out immediately. But like he put the bass down and then like wandered around and then
just keep it in the tuck it in the head or in the like everybody else does. That's where you put cigarettes.
Yeah, he's a fun guy to watch.
Yeah.
So let's roll into the album. So I gave you 2005 and you selected The Sunset Tree by the Mountain Goats.
Yes, indeed. The Sunset Tree. What a record. I was a little nervous about this because I think we talked about this, but like it's not punk.
Yeah.
And punk adjacent might be a stretch, but it's like there are certain bands, right? There are certain non-punk acts that like punks will be into and that have that like crossover appeal. Like like I used to joke about, are you a chick or a Harmar punk? Like if you go, because I feel like there are two factions, right? And now, fuck that guy. But like you could put chick at a party full of punk kids and they're going to be into it. Or you could put like, you always have the punk friends that listen to like the Mountain Goats.
Yeah.
They're one of those bands that I think has that appeal. It's like in Chuck Klosterman's book, Fargo, Rocksteady, he talks about like metalheads are metalheads. But we all love Tom Petty. Like that's the what we fucking hate. We think Van Halen sold out when they started using synthesizers. We fucking love Metallica over the Big Four or nothing but Tom Petty. We do love Tom Petty.
Yeah, everyone I know who likes the Mountain Goats is into punk in some form or fashion or has been at one point in their life. So it's not it. I call it of interest to punks. Like that's definitely
And there's a lot of punk ethos.
Yeah.
and punk lifestyle and punk culture in the Mountain Goats story, like in the song subject matter and in the touring and the releasing, the DIY ethic that John Darnielle had for such a long time with this project. So I think it counts.
Yeah. So,
and he covered Jawbreaker once. So
I have a couple stats. That's what I call them on the album, and I'll run through those real quick. So, the Mountain Goats started as a solo project in Claremont, California, by John Darnielle. After years of releasing boombox home recordings, the Mountain Goats became more of a band, with Darnielle collaborating with a variety of musicians. This is the band's 9th studio album, so there's some stuff that's not counted but is counted. There's a lot of stuff. It was released April 26, 2005 on 4AD Records, and the personnel on this album is John Darnielle on guitar and vocals, Peter Hughes on bass and vocals, Alex DeCarville on drums, Franklin Bruno on piano, and Eric Friedlander on cello, with the album being produced by John Vanderslice. Peter Hughes has been on every single Mountain Goats album since Tallahassee, so he's essentially like a main member of the band. Franklin Bruno has played on other records such as See America Right? Is that what that was called? Yeah. Tallahassee, We Shall Be Healed, Get Lonely, and Heretic Pride. He also appeared on this year's Superchunk record, Wild Loneliness. I thought that was cool. And then Eric Friedlander is a cello player who has he's on a couple Mountain Goats records, Get Lonely, Heretic Pride, Beat the Champ. He's also been on 400 releases, including a cello musician is in demand. So he's been on Elvis Costello records, Alanis Morissette, lots of John Zorn records, Kelly Clarkson, and to connect it to Pod the Life, he's on Korn's MTV Unplugged.
Oh shit! Hell yeah! Well, look, Korn MTV Unplugged is a very special event. It is an experience. I'm a big fan of the Korn MTV Unplugged. That's fucking awesome. I didn't know he was on that. Yeah. That's great. I think that probably Franklin Bruno, you said, was on the Superchunk record.
Yeah, Wild Loneliness. It's
probably because John Wurster is in the Mountain Goats now, and Superchunk. There's that connection. Also, I forgot what I was. There's another thing I was going to say, but that's I would imagine why the
they merge.
Yeah.
They live in Durham.
Well,
now,
it was
too.
because of John Wurster that the Mountain Goats started putting stuff out on Merge.
Yeah, and he moved to Durham around 2006. He moved to Durham, so I forget where he was before here, but yeah. So the thing I usually ask first is, what made you choose this album to talk about?
Well, it's gonna be funny because I've already said that the reason I didn't pick other records is because they weren't my favorite record by that artist. This is also not my favorite Mountain Goats record. There are Mountain Goats. I think it's a 5-way tie for first, actually, and this is tied with 2 or 3 others for second. But it's a changing point in the Mountain Goats discography for John Darnielle as a songwriter, and for the band as an entity, and the directions that he was going with it. It's also not a record that was on my radar when it came out, unlike the other records we've talked about. This is a record that I came to kind of later. It's weird. I first heard the Mountain Goats in probably, I think, 2000-ish, 2001, I think the summer of 2001 maybe, because I had a friend. Well, okay, so what happened was Adam and His Package put out Redefining Music, which had 3 Mountain Goats covers on it. And I heard those songs, and I was like, I gotta check out this fucking Mountain Goats band. And I had this friend named Steve, who was also a big Adam and His Package fan, and was also into Mountain Goats, and was like, oh yeah, you'd love the Mountain Goats. But I also kind of had this, like, I don't know, the punk scene, you can talk a lot about, like, the judgment you feel, or the, like, wanting to be the first to something, or wanting to, I don't take whatever. Every band I know because of someone who was in my life that was cooler than me. Like, and that's just the way it is. I was never the cool guy, but you start to, I don't know. you get into conversations, right, about like who owns punk and when do you when do you come to something versus when. I feel like I'm going off-roading here. Let me rein it in. So he recommended to me, and I listened to a few of the Shrimper releases. I think I couldn't tell you what all, but I was like, oh, they're good. Yeah, I like them. I like this. This is good, but it's a little. I wasn't quite ready for it. I wasn't quite ready for the low fineness of it and all of that. And the lyrics were a little probably too, I was into, at that age, I was into punk rock that was like declarative and, political and about the struggle and stuff that was like super personal, super, obviously aside from the Weaker Thans. That's the Weaker Thans are very special. Like I was already into the Weaker Thans, but I would hear the Mountain Goats and I'd be like, well, I'd rather listen to the Weaker Thans, And it took me a while to come back to the Mountain Goats. I think it was Heretic Pride came out and I was really into that. And I also had a coworker, I think, before Heretic Pride came out that was really into Mountain Goats and was always trying to like, you should listen. And I would listen. I'd be like, yeah, this is good. This is great. But it's not something I always want to put on all the time. But then Heretic Pride came out and I was like, holy shit, this is great. I love this. It's amazing. And when Life in the World to Come came out, I listened to that and I was also into that. But it was also still like, there was something that wasn't connecting for me as far as like getting super into them. And then in 2010, I saw the Mountain Goats play at FYF in LA. And I could go on a huge rant about festivals and that festival in particular, and just like how festivals are not the ideal way to see any musical act. Like, there's exceptions to that, obviously. Like, the Roots at Rock the Bells was one of the best things I've ever seen in my life. And the Mountain Goats at FYF in 2010. Like, I saw Titus Andronicus, I think, that same year at FYF, and it was terrible. And then I saw them months later again in Denver, and I was like, wow, this is amazing. They're amazing. Like, so just festivals in general. You get to be a very special kind of performer, I think, to have a great set at a festival. And the Mountain Goats did. And when I saw them live, that's when it all connected for me. Because John Darnielle has this thing that I think it's not a popular idea in punk. Like, right, like which is ironic because a lot of the early punk acts were sort of started almost in the same fashion as boy bands.
Yeah.
But like where it was made to be like an image, a celebrity, an icon, there was an icon worship to it. But like the real punk bands, the bands that are really about the punk shit, the up the punks mentality is no one's special, no one's a star. Yeah. This isn't phony. This isn't Hollywood. This isn't bullshit. Like, this all comes from the heart, and it's all about fucking stuff up. And it's an idea that has kind of like undercut a lot of, I think, what's special about live performance and in music. And it's, I mean, you can be of several minds about it, right? Like, it's not necessarily a good or a bad thing. But, because there's a lot of performers you see that think they're rock stars. And you see them and you're like, you don't got it. You're full of shit. I'm not into you. But then you see Bruce Springsteen. And it's like, this fucking guy is a god. This guy has come from another planet. And
a planet of rock stars.
Yeah.
Everyone's like that. They just are born with jeans and leather jackets on.
Yeah, it's also where Kurt came from. And I think, but yeah, the tradition of the performer, the divas, the crooners, the torch singers, the lounge acts, there's an element of the enthusiasm that comes with performing and having a self-awareness about, I know I'm performing, but also, being able to give yourself over to the truth in your performance and having it like possess you in a way. And that's a fine line. And it's a thing that I don't think a lot of people can do under any circumstances. I think it comes with touring relentlessly for years and having a deep artistic connection to what fucks you up as a person and what you're willing to talk about. And, also maybe there's a little bit of narcissism in it, maybe there's a little bit of ADHD in it. I don't know, like a little bit of like, I want some attention and I'm getting it. And and I can tell you as a stand-up comic, having a decade of experience in that world, like I I'm not saying any of this to be dismissive or whatever. It's because it's a thing that I can relate to. It's a thing that, like, when you're really in it, and I've probably only been in that zone I could probably count on one hand, you know, but when you get it and you feel it, like you feel something you're getting from the audience and you're giving back, it's like a very special thing. And he's got that. And I've seen them perform, I don't know how many times now. I've seen the Mountain Goats live every time I've been able to since 2010, since I saw that performance at FYF, until recently when they came here and I was like, I'm not going to First Ave during COVID. And I think that was, it elevated a lot of the material for me at that moment. Like there's a lot of stuff where like a lot of the songs that I had heard before that I was like, I get why this is good, but it was like that, it like crystallized. Seeing him perform those songs live, it's like, oh no, I get it. I get this now. And as a result, I went back and really got into all of the back catalog and got kind of obsessed with it. And so the Sunset Tree is, I think, you know, it's this record he put out because it was the final record he did with 4AD. And it was, you know, sort of the culmination of that like 3-album arc where it was like his first time in a studio with a full band, not doing the boombox thing, with a producer that, you know, was kind of making the material more than just the songs that he had written and putting a lot more. And there's so much going on in all these songs by comparison to his earlier stuff. And it's also, you know, the record, he wrote it, the songs are mostly all about his childhood and growing up in an abusive home. And, you know, before that, he would sort of tell his autobiographical stories through metaphor, through these little narratives. And that's another thing that makes this, because this record is like his old work in that way, in that a lot of the songs feel like short stories. They're all pretty narrative. They're not these declarative anthems the way you would usually get in punk rock. They're not like, you know, in punk rock, there's usually very little mystery. There's usually not a whole lot to figure out. Like they will tell you what the song is about.
They will say, fuck you, George Bush, because it's 2005.
Yeah, or they'll say free John Hinckley, and their song will get cut from the Rock Against Bush comp, like Propaganda did.
All right, I'm on Johnson Avenue in San Luis Obispo, and I'm 5 years old or 6 maybe, and indications that there's something wrong with our new house. Trip down the wire twice daily. I'm in the living room watching the Watergate hearings while my stepfather yells at my mother, launches a glass across the room straight at her head, and I dash upstairs to take cover, lean in close to my little record player on the floor. So this is what the volume knob's for. I listen to dance music, dance music.
Yeah, so it's very different in that way, in that they're all sort of, you know, there's people online that like pore over these lyrics and try to figure. And John Darnielle, I guess, is pretty like, I'm not going to explain all my songs to you, which is interesting because also another thing that's great about seeing them live is his banter. I could straight up just listen to him, go to a show where he's just talking about his songs. You know, it's fascinating stuff. And so much work goes into the songs and into the lyrics. And people try to decode the lyrics to figure, what is this a metaphor? What is this reference? What does this mean? Because the songs are very layered and rich with metaphor and reference and things. But I do like that there's a little bit of mystery. But you can get the specific details you do get, like you can relate to them, you know, you use proper nouns, and it doesn't matter if I know the proper noun or not, I'm going to pick up on what you're saying about it, on what it means to you. You know, I've got an analog for everything you're talking about in a song, if you're really meaning it. And it's his attitude of recording this was kind of like, well, this is probably going to be the last chance I get, you know, to record an album on this level for this kind of a label in a studio with this producer and really just go nuts. So I'm going to just go nuts, and I'm going to make it as personal as possible. And it's going to be all about, you know, growing up under the oppression of domestic violence, and what it's like when your abuser dies, and my addiction and my struggles with that, and I'm just going to put it all in there, and we're going to play with the production, and it's going to be everything I can throw into it. And that's what you got. It was everything he could throw into it. And I think that it's a very interesting record in that regard. And the songs still hit, Sorry.
No, that's a good little spiel, like a thesis on the album. Interestingly, you asked us early. You asked me early on. He's like, should we do this record? Like if you hate the Mountain Goats, we could do something else. And my response to you was, I don't hate the Mountain Goats. I don't actually have any opinion or much of a feeling on the Mountain Goats because I never had a Mountain Goats phase. Like that was just like something that I never had. There was a point when Heretic Pride came out and I was working at Barnes & Noble in the music department. And like, I remember seeing that CD every day and I'd be like, what is that? And I'm like, that would have been the Two Paths in the Woods if I had actually gone that way. I probably would have enjoyed it and hooked it then.
I had that thing go on with literally this record. I was at Wax Trax in Denver when this record came out, and I was like, or not too long after this record came out, and I had it in my hands, and I was like, hey, I'm gonna buy. I like what I've heard. We'll check it out. And I think I don't know what I got. I think instead I got an Excelsior record or a Godspeed or something. Like I got something else instead. Like I put it back and I got something else, and it's. I remember when I saw them, I should have got that fucking Sunset Tree record. Like, even though I'd already, I'd gotten into Heretic Pride and Life in the World to Come and all that. But yeah, it's that fork in the road thing is real,
So yeah, my knowledge of the Mountain Goats is like, they're an important band to a lot of people. They have this very deep connection with people that like very few artists I've seen have. I remember when I didn't know anything about them being kind of thrown off and feeling like there was maybe like a cult of personality around him at that stage.
I can see that. I can see there's, certain artists like Tori Amos, or Bright Eyes even.
Mm-hmm.
Or
even
where
Dashboard, Caraba.
Yeah. Fucking Jeff Buckley.
Yeah.
Like, you get people where it's like, they get so single-mindedly obsessed with something that it becomes their whole world in a way. And I can see why that happens. Again, as someone like, I think it's usually the singer-songwriters that are talking about the stuff that a lot of us feel uncomfortable talking about or afraid to talk about. And so we hear it in a song and it becomes like, oh, they're speaking directly to me because this is an experience that I also have, but I don't talk about it with other people. So it feels more intimate,
So my connection, I guess, is just I've never had that like moment where I was like, oh, okay, I get it. This is my thing. Because I actually have a friend who has like, I'm actually a really big fan of the band AJJ, and
they had another fucking. They had a record. Their first record was 2005, right? The Candy Cigarettes and Cap.
Yeah, that one's got some stuff on it that I wouldn't necessarily want to talk about, just because.
Not that one though.
It didn't age well.
You know what?
The one after though,
let's bleep it. Can you bleep it?
No. I love that record. I do, but it has songs on there that I'm like, yeah, they wouldn't write this today.
Skip.
Like that kind of thing.
Skip that one.
No, absolutely.
But
not.
I have a friend who like does enjoy it. He likes this era of Mountain Goats. He didn't like follow past like too late in the career, but he's always been like, you like AJJ, but you don't like the Mountain Goats? Like, I don't understand. Like, and I don't know. That was my band, but even then, that's a different type of songwriting. Like, there's similarities to the way he writes, and it's more the way he sings and the style of song he writes. But he also uses a lot of humor and different like, not in the same way. They're not the same type of writers lyrically, but.
But there's similarities. Yeah. There's a tone and there's a thematic. There are thematic parallels. There are the use of hyperbole.
Yeah. Oh yeah. For sure.
Of poetic hyperbole. I love AJJ as well.
Yeah. So
I still think Good Luck Everybody is so fucking good. I know that it's kind of a snapshot record in a lot of ways. But,
I saw AJJ February 2020. And it was just like, well, this record's immediately dated as of March 2020, Because like I think there's like a line. There's a line in that record that like specifically is saying maybe things will get better, maybe they won't. And I was like, the maybe you won't part came true to that song.
Yeah.
Thanks, you cursed us.
But I do think, again, like, you know, John K. Sampson as well from the Weaker Thans has that kind of, like, again, we're talking about very intimate things. He's a little sweeter about it.
Yeah.
And doesn't get quite as bombastic or as visceral with the lyrics as, you know, AJJ or Mountain Goats or, you know, even Modest Mouse.
Yeah. John K. Sampson has this more quaint type of writing, or like he's talking about
more provincial. Really, it's more.
he kind of does the thing like what's his name? Like a Wes Anderson if he was a singer instead of a filmmaker. Like just like the way he meticulously like little things that he puts in his songs. Like
yeah, well, and I think it's. Again, it's like maybe not such a popular idea in punk, but there's a lot of that. John Darnielle wrote this really interesting, and it's short. It's a quick read. This really interesting bit about it's in the Atlantic, but it's an article about the writing process for the song "Dance Music" on the Sunset Tree, and he goes into the idea of using a little bit of sleight of hand to make this thing that you've worked on, that you're working meticulously on, feel spontaneous or feel in the moment when you're performing it live or when somebody hears it, when you're laying it down. Like, there's a craft to it. It takes work. It's not just, in punk we talk about, right? Like, if it's not, it's got to be honest. It's got to be right off the cuff. It's got to be spontaneous, But, like, the truth is, it's all rehearsed. And that's another thing that that speaks to me as someone who did stand-up is that it's like, there's a struggle there of like, well, how do I make this bit that I've been practicing 3 times a night for the last 6 months feel fresh and new and like I've discovered something when I do it in this show? And yeah, there's a bit of trickery to that. There's a bit of performance to that. There's a bit of like, the actor stuff. And even when you're writing, that's a concern because you have to bend the truth sometimes. You have to use flowery language sometimes. Yeah,
to make it work, or in comedy's sake, funnier. Like sometimes it's just like, I'm going to use a different word because it's fun. It's a funnier word.
Yeah.
Or like with writing a song, you would want to pick something that it flows better if I word it this way, even though it's not 100% the way it happened.
Yeah, this isn't exactly totally super factual, but it's still true. You know what I mean? Like it still means what it means.
You write those lines that don't quite mean something, that fill the space, like because you need it to fit a space. Mm-hmm. So you kind of have to like twist it and make it like evoke something rather than actually say something.
And you can just lie in songs.
Yeah.
Nobody said you
can make up stories.
They actually got a lot of those emo bands in the 2000s in trouble. Was like, oh, these lyrics are too confessive. Like, you confess the things that got you in trouble.
Yeah.
There's bound to be a ghost at the back of your closet. No matter where you live, there'll always be a few things, maybe several things, that you're gonna find really difficult to forgive. There's gonna come a day when you feel better. You'll rise up free and easy on that day and float from branch to branch, lighter than the air. Just when that day is coming, who can say, who can say? Our mother has been absent ever since we founded Rome. But there's gonna be a party when the wolf comes home.
Dylan, what is your prior Mountain Goats feelings or preconceived notions?
I was trying to think of when I became aware of them, where my introduction was to this band. And I think that I first became aware of them through a friend that I knew in high school who was briefly in my death metal band. Actually,
Were they called the Killers or Satan's Fingers or the Hospital Bombers?
Oh, let's see. What was it?
it was All the Living.
That's a classic 2003
So it was just a
metalcore
classic
band.
Fuck yeah. Fuck yeah.
She was really into the Mountain Goats. I don't know when I became aware of her being like a super fan. But she was definitely like one of those people like, and to Justin's point about like the cult of personality around John Darnielle, she was at least at that point as like a teenager was very much the kind of person who was like single-minded, like obsessive, like talked about them all the time, referenced them all the time, listened to them all the time. So I think that was that has to be my first real, but I didn't put those pieces together. It wasn't like, oh, I'm not interested in the Mountain Goats because of this like super obsessive fascination that someone has with them. I was just like, oh, she really likes the Mountain Goats.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And then like as I got older, like I started to encounter other people who liked the Mountain Goats, and I was like, they kind of have the same thing going on. That's interesting.
Yeah.
Like, why does this band have that? And I think I probably had heard some of it at one point, and it just wasn't the right kind of music at the right time for me to like actually start listening to him and dig deeper. But I had the similarly became aware of them not long after, or maybe like connected more dots with that Adam and his Package doing those Mountain Goats covers and being like, oh, that's interesting. Maybe I
Yeah.
should listen to them. But then I for whatever reason didn't follow through on that.
Yeah. Like I got into Cubs in 5 because I'm a Cubs fan. And I got into going to Georgia, and some other, but I think a similar thing where it was like, but at the time it was like, yeah, I like it, but it's not, and then it grabs you at some point, and then it really means a lot to you. And I think that, that's a thing that we kind of think of it as like a teenage thing or as a young person thing, but I'm in my 40s and it still happens to me sometimes. Like I'll still like go discover a band that's like, fuck, this band was doing thrash in 1987 and I didn't hear about it. Like, and now it's like, this is all I give a shit about. You only talk to me about Sacrifice. We're only talking about Sacrifice for the next 2 weeks. But it's like, your relationship to music never ends. Like your growth through it and getting into things and getting thrown from things, it never stops. It just gets less intense probably, or less like, especially, I think the thing was we think of it as a teenage thing because when you're a teenager, that's what
Like it's all you have.
Like,
you have all the time for it.
yeah. And that's a very punk rock thing. Like that's a subject in all over punk music about like, it's all we have. Like this is all we have. The music's important because we don't have anything else. We don't have any power in the world because we're young and the people that are running the world are old and dying and they don't give a shit if they kill us too. And so that's, and I think that there's a lot of punk subject matter in this record, like the idea of addiction and abuse and trauma and loss and feeling powerless is throughout this record, and those are all pretty big punk themes.
Yeah, like especially there's like a song in particular that like really stood out for me. I think this year, like to me, feels like one of the most punk songs on the entire record.
Yeah.
Like
Yeah. I mean, like he talks about drinking and punching things, and what's more punk rock than that,
Yeah, it is like one of the most like straightforward lyrically too, but also like I don't know, it's very raw and but also paints like a story, which like I could see other people who write a similar story who come from punk music too. Like I could see a Ben Nichols write a similar idea. Most of his songs are all about heartbreak and like growing up and stuff like that, but like he paints pictures and stories with his lyric type.
Yeah.
I also think Ben Nichols has, I think he's said in multiple interviews, he's like, yeah, this song's not about anything in particular that happened. It's just like, he's just really good at like putting a scene together.
Well, yeah, I mean, a lot of times people will say that about, Mountain Goats songs, like We Shall All Be Healed is really when John Darnielle started writing about himself. And it's like I know the other songs are like made up stories about made up people, but they're also about him. Like, everything you write is about you in some way, if it means anything to you. Like, that's what writing is. But so like I'm not here to argue with Ben Nichols.
Yeah.
Look, That Much Further West is amazing.
That's my favorite Lucero record.
Same,
everybody goes,
same.
Tennessee's the best. I'm like, Tennessee's amazing. That Much Further West is mine.
Tennessee is amazing, but that much further west is that's in my heart forever. Yeah.
But like, but other songwriters too, like your Blake Schwarzenbachs and like we mentioned, John K. Sampson, and these type of writers have been in punk music forever. So like, I find it odd that Blake never went this route. I feel like he could have gone in like an acoustic folky sounded.
He
I don't
played.
I don't think he likes acoustic folky music.
Yeah,
I bet that's it.
He played a set. He played a solo. I think it was solo, and I think it was acoustic set at a bar out in the middle of nowhere in California once. That a friend of mine went to go see him and said it was great, but it was that kind of thing. But it's one of those things where it's like, I'm surprised he's not doing more of that, because I feel like everybody else. Yeah. You like Hot Water Music. Like, there's guys from all these other bands that are doing this thing. It's kind of surprising but he probably just
he did that Thorns of Life band, which would do acoustic stuff. And I guess you can look at Jets to Brazil as probably the softest he goes. But even like John Kay doesn't do acoustic records. Like he's got full band stuff on all those albums. So
yeah, he did an acoustic version of Utilities that was released on some comp or sampler or something that I still prefer to the album version. I think he does that too. He plays around acoustically and stuff, but even when he does solo records, they're like, "Oh no, this is produced. This is studio." You get a
even
band.
that last John Kay record was like 3/4 of the Weaker Thans. Like
but just call it the Weaker Thans. What do you? Okay, I guess.
I think it's because that one
but...
guy in the band was like, "Yeah, we're done," and then they're like, "Oh, okay, I guess we'll say we're done then." It was like the bass.
Well, because we're
That's
collectivists.
right. Well,
yeah.
But
it's true. But here's my question for y'all. Do you listen to the record again? What do you think? What are you into it, man?
Dylan, you go first.
I guess I would say I'm not converted. I'm probably not gonna dig into their discography, though. I may check out other records as I come across them, especially if they seem like they might be significant, important records in their career. I would be curious to know what they're about. This record it's interesting to hear for its place in his discography as like the end of that 4AD run and being a big production record for an artist who is really a singer-songwriter artist who could easily just do acoustic records by themselves. Like that's people were into him doing that before. It's not like he needs production to really have a career, but it is interesting to hear the production choices on this record. Some of them I think are really cool. Some of them I think are really odd. I think I didn't love it for most. Like there were probably parts of songs that I really enjoyed and lyrics, certain lines that I really enjoyed for most of the listen through the record. And then like the last 3 songs, I was listening to them today, Song for Dennis Brown, Love, 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 Pale Green Things. And I'm like, I wish this was the whole record. Like they're definitely much more stripped down plaintive songs. Like and I think the lyrics really shine. I think that his choice in vocal style really helps these songs because his voice is one of those voices that I don't hate the tone of his voice, the way people would say, oh yeah, that's the thing you don't like about him. It's like, no, I don't dislike the tone of his voice. There's plenty of nasally singers that I love. Willie Nelson, I love. I mean, even Sean from AJJ has that kind of like sort of untrained, brash performance. I think there are maybe just little things at the ends of phrases that irk me, that make him harder for me to get into on the bigger, more theatrical songs. But those quieter songs where he's singing like, even just like singing like, really just singing in falsetto, just like really quiet, really not trying to peak on the mic at all. Just like, we're really touching and really effective at delivering the lyrics.
That's so wild to me because I love. I actually, of those three, I really love that song. And there's like a very, like that's, there's a line, and there are a couple lines in that song that just like fucking cut me right into my core. For a number of reasons, but like Pale Green Things is the song that I think I listen to least because it almost feels voyeuristic to me. Like because again, he writes so much these like narratives, these characters, these stories, that when he has a song that's like, no, this song is about my stepdad dying. It's like, I feel like, oh, I gotta close the door. I shouldn't look at this,
Yeah.
But it is a very touching song, but the stuff in the stuff in the Mountain Goats that I like the most are the songs that are like the fucking like the up tempo, like this song's about revenge, or this song's about like that kind of stuff. Those are the songs that I like the most from their catalog. So it's interesting. You actually might like some of the later stuff, some of the more recent stuff like Getting Into Knives and Dark in Here. Because there's more of those like softer, quieter, like lamentations almost,
Yeah.
But that's interesting to hear that, like, because I do think this is one of those bands that he's always trying to do new stuff, and he's always trying to like he's a production nerd and like an equipment nerd from what I gather. The way he talks about music, when he talks about it, it's like, oh yeah, you get the best result from this amp and this mic if you want to do this, and always like when he added Matt Douglas to the band, who's the multi-instrumentalist. He plays like saxophone and some other reeds and horns, and this more expansive sound, and I think a lot more. But that's interesting. I think you might like some of the. I swear I'm not trying to convert you. I just realized I am that guy. I'd like that. Oh, you really love Tori Amos if you just. And she was right when she told me that, because then now I do love Tori Amos. But
I need to sincerely try Tori Amos, and I keep seeing her records come up on my calendar system. I'll be like, Tori Amos, should I listen?
I'll go into my kind of like take on it. So I have said on the show multiple times in the past that I'm not a really big like lyrics guy, and what I mean by that is that I appreciate good lyrics. Like I definitely like, if it's good lyrics, it's good lyrics. But when I'm listening to music, I don't pay attention to what the lyrics are saying most of the time. It's very much I'm more focused on what the instruments are doing and what like the voice sounds like and the tone and the phrase and like the way things are phrased. It takes me, I have to either like go read the lyrics immediately or listen to the record like 10 to 12 times before I like, oh, that's what they're saying in this song. Like, I don't know if it's just like, I don't know how to describe that. I guess I'm just distracted by the music over the lyrics or what the lyrics are saying, or I can't focus on what the lyrics mean when I'm listening. So whenever we get records like this, I'm like, I feel like a dumb guy sometimes, and I'm just like, well, the guitars are doing this thing, and it's like, it's really hard to talk about this type of record because like almost the entire record it is acoustic guitars with other things, of course, but so like I'm always focused on like what is this? What does it sound like? And I was telling we have a friend who I mentioned earlier, and he was like, oh, this is my favorite Mountain Goats record. It's like, oh, cool, that's fun. He's like, were you moved by this year? And I was like, no, why? Why should I have been? And he's like, you're heartless. And I said, that's not true, because I cried at a Spider-Man movie last night. So I just need it laid out clearly for me. And so then I had to go like read the lyrics to that song to be like, oh yeah, this song rules. Like,
Yeah.
no, go ahead.
Sorry. Well, I was just gonna say, I think this year is the song that if you see the Mountain Goats live, that's the song that literally everyone that's there is singing along to the entire time. But yeah, I kind of have I'm a lyrics guy because when I was in bands, I was the lyrics guy and the vocalist, and I did poetry for such a long time, and I'm in stand up, and I write things occasionally, so I'm very much about the words in a lot of ways. So I guess it's not always the lyrics that are the reason I get into a thing, because there are, this band, I had to see them live to really be like, no, I fucking get it.
I get that fits in that idea that like Dylan and I, if we were at a Mountain Goat show, we go, oh, it makes sense now.
Yeah.
Maybe. Yeah. I would.
Dylan's more hesitant. It's funny, Dylan, that you didn't like the more upbeat or bombastic songs, because those are the ones that I liked the most. Like I liked the first track, You Or Your Memory, This Year, Dance Music, and Up the Wolves. Like those to me were the standouts.
I liked You Or Your Memory for the most part. I think there are maybe little things in it that I maybe didn't make me love the song, but that does have, I want to say there's a line in that song that I really liked.
Well, that's the St. Joseph's Baby Aspirin and Bartles and James.
St. Joseph's Baby Aspirin. Yeah, it's
I think the chorus just has a really good phrasing on those lines that I did enjoy. I did really like Dance Music. Overall, as a song, production wise, I liked the line in the third verse where he says, "So that's what the volume knob's for."
That is hands down, bar none, my favorite lyric.
Yeah, that was
so this
that's
is what the
fucking
volume
good.
knob's for. So this is what the volume knob's like. That's why we listen to music. That is why, like that idea of like I'm in pain. The world around me is pain. I am powerless to stop it. Turn it the fuck up. Like that's what I'm in this room with this record player. Turn this music up. Drown everything else out. Like that's fucking punk rock, man. That's like, it's my favorite lyric. Period.
Do you know though too? I've listened to records before where I'm like, I don't know, I'm just not feeling this. And then when I just turned it up, it was like, oh, it's real good now. And so it's just like, some records, it's like you can't listen to them quietly. You have to have them loud for it to work. Because otherwise, I guess you're losing some of the dynamics maybe, or you're like, especially like a louder record, it's not giving you the punch if the volume's too low. But I've definitely done that where I was like, I don't know why I'm not connecting to this record. I was really looking forward to it. And then I turn it up and I'm like, now I connect to it.
Yeah, I think the ideal circumstances for listening to this record are driving either away from or towards a place that has memories that haunt you, on the highway with the windows down and the volume all the way up, screaming along to, like, it's that kind of a record to me, even though it's not that kind of a record on the face of it, you know. But I think I mean maybe it just comes down to subject matter and theme in a lot of ways for like what certain people are gonna relate to. But Dance Music, I feel like that's the one.
I was reading about it and I was like, yeah, okay, I get like the story behind this record and like what the subject matter of everything is and like, you know, his background and all that kind of stuff. But then I actually read this this article. It was like written, I wish I'd actually wrote the name of the site that the article was on, but it was basically like a retrospective. The article was written like in 2016 and it was something along the lines like, oh, there it is. It's from the rumpus.net. It was called Albums of Our Lives, the Mountain Goat Sunset Tree.
Yes.
And so like I read the article or the review of it, and the guy he was a little older, like his teenage daughter really got into them, and like that's when he like gave them another listen, and he was like, oh, I'm him, like my life is this same life. Like he apparently had the same, he tells the story of his dad being like abusive and like this bad stepdad that he had, and like it was the article was very moving emotionally. Ray Shea wrote the article, March 2016. And that was, I was like, okay, yeah, I get why the Mountain Goats in general are such an important band for so many people, because they are connecting on a thing that, like, content wise, that, like, I'm not necessarily connecting to, but other people were really connecting to.
Yeah. And there were other bands in this vein and albums in this vein that I would listen to when I was drinking a lot before I quit, that are kind of like songs, again, about like loss, trauma, addiction, how we deal with that shit, etc., that I can't really listen to now because so much of my experience with them are tied in with like being a fucking mess who was actively destroying himself. But this record that I listened to at that point too, it's still, I'm like able to do it because I don't know. I can't say that I come from the same background as that author or as John Darnielle. Like I'm very lucky. My father knew what was in him in that way and actively worked against it. Like knew, like his dad was a monster, was an abusive person and an alcoholic. And, the complicated feelings that my father had towards his father about like, I love you, but you also destroyed my ability to relate to other people in many ways. And, I was very lucky in that regard that like, I didn't ever, families are all fucked up, right? Like they all are because they're families. Like everybody's family should be in therapy, period. But, and I have my back and forth with my family now still to this day. Like that never goes away. But I'm very lucky and privileged that I didn't have what John Darnielle grew up with or that. But because I know, like, I don't know, it's weird. I don't want to say I know, Right. Because I don't. But like, I did grow up with a contentious relationship with my father where for a very long time we did not understand each other. And there were shades of abuse. There were little bits and things that we didn't call abuse, but they were still like an emotional abuse and what have you. Like, even if you were spanked, like that, I think counts to a degree. Like, that puts a fucked up idea in your head about, like, what is expected of you and what you can be afraid of. That kind of rules your life for a while when your brain is still forming. Yeah. But
you learn very early that violence can be used to get behavior that you want.
Yeah.
Out of other people. That's not a good thing to teach children.
No, it's absolutely not a good thing to teach children. So like even if that is a part of your upbringing, at least some part of what this is and what this is about. There's 3 songs that he put out that were on the demo for this album that were not included on the album that are the songs I think I relate to more than these songs because they're more about abuse from peers. And they're more about like going to school and hating everybody, which is the experience that I had. I was bullied by my peers, not my family. So I did have a little bit of respite at least where I could go home after school and scream into my pillow without someone at home trying to destroy me. So I at least had that. But so those are the songs that I really relate to that didn't make the album. But because I know what my dad grew up with and because I had a lot of friends in high school and middle school and college who, did go through this and who were abused at home. And I know what that looked like. Like there's an empathy I have when I listen to these that it's like, it's heartbreaking. And again, like there's sometimes I feel a little voyeuristic because it's like, no, I was lucky. Like I didn't have this, but the feelings are feelings I can relate to.
You have the context for it. Like you can grasp the concepts of everything about it and get it because you're like only like a step away or 2 steps away from that yourself. So
yeah, and the songs that I feel the hardest are Hast Thou Considered the Tetrapod is probably my favorite song on the record because it makes me feel of a different. It makes me think of a different family member I had that thankfully was not someone who lived in my home. That was kind of a nightmare to be around in a lot of ways and who I was afraid of. And there's a lot of the lyrics that evoke that for me in that song. And Love, 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 I tell you, just as someone who's had suicidal ideation for a very long part of his life, like since, let's say 9, 10 years old, there's a line in Love, Love, Love that like is the first time I can recall hearing a like suicide referenced in a song where it's like, oh, there's no judgment in this lyric. Like there's one way or the other. It's just like, this is what this person did. And then the line of snakes in the grass, stars in the sky above our heads, or rain in the sky above our heads, snakes in the grass beneath. It's like, it's this idea that, no, there's still a world. Like he did this, but there's still a world with these things going on. I don't know why. There's something about that lyric that kind of like is a salve to me, is a balm to me when I have bad thoughts. I feel like that's too much. I feel like I've now just done the weaker thans thing where I've alienated somebody.
Well, don't worry, because it's at the tail end of a 2-hour podcast, so...
Sorry. So we'll cut it.
No. I genuinely, I know your concern early on was like the alienating aspect. And then when Brendan on that episode, Brendan from Overo, he was talking about the weaker thans in particular. He was like, I don't want to like make alienating and make it so like deeply personal. It's like, I don't know. I think you can go any route with this type of show, because I feel like I connect almost better to episodes where someone is just like, here's my connection to this artist and why I feel this way about this artist. So yeah, you can be like, well, I chose the popular option, but it's like, well, what did everybody can be like, what was the story of the recording like? Like anybody can do that. Only you can tell your actual emotional story attached to the record,
Yeah.
That's, I don't know. Every way to take it is a possibility, but yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, I think of records that I love that are just like, well, I listened to them while I was driving through a certain place, and they're like really important, and it's like such a mundane thing. Like I was just sitting in a car driving.
Or even like one of my favorite records was just a record that I would put on, Joyin' by Dan Sartain. Like I would just put that record on and just go drive and smoke, like chain smoke and drive. And it was like, I don't know that I've ever been like clinically depressed, but like if I was ever, that was it. It was just being like, I drove north for about an hour, and then I just turned around and came back and listened to the same record 5 times in a row, whatever, like it's just like,
yeah, your chosen activity is driving nowhere. That's I've done that.
Yeah. Oh yeah. Come on.
That's a depression coping mechanism for sure.
Yeah. I mean, the severity of it can probably be judged by what you're bringing. Like, I don't know. I used to do there's the days that I would go driving with cigarettes and a song, or an album, and just, I'm going for a drive. I don't know where. I'm just going to, and it's like, okay, that was depression. But, then there was, I don't know, 5 months later where, I was going through the Taco Bell drive-thru, getting a Baja Blast, pouring a shooter of tequila into it, stopping at the liquor store, getting a half pint of Old Granddad and 2 tall boys of PBR, and putting those in the car, and then having a night of driving, which is not, it's like, that was definitely worse. So by comparison, the other thing is, it's still not great, but you know. And that's why I can listen to Sunset Tree, because that's what I would listen to when I was just like, a cigarette. And like, I can't hear good news for people who had it's just like, no, that was my bad night record.
Yeah, there's definitely records where I was like, I don't want to listen to that. It makes me think of like, I loved it at the time, but it was just like, it was helping when it needed to be, but I don't need that help anymore,
There's also the things where it's like, it's not even about anything you do. Like I was listening to a Verrucker's record once when I hit a patch of black ice going 80 miles an hour and spun out and almost got, killed in a car accident. And I'll never listen to the Verruckers again. It's like, and the song was like, "Where Is Your God Now?" or something. And it's like, I can't.
Yeah, I have a record I was listening to whenever I got into a car accident, and I was like, what if it happens again?
Yeah. I'm not playing that record again.
I'm
That's
stationary
tempting
when I
fucking
listen to that record.
Yeah. I got to be sitting in a chair on the first floor of a building with the windows closed. I got a Final Destination up this fucking apartment to listen to the Barookers. I also like Broom People.
Yeah, the second
It's another
track,
song I really love.
There's
Yeah.
something about that track that stands out to me. What was it? Was it the that weird warbly bass sound that's on?
Yes, I love that sound. It's like that.
It was like this strange sound.
And then the end. I am a babbling brook. I don't know. And then you read what the song's about, and you're like, oh, it's about fucking. What?
What is?
This is a song about how he was getting laid in high school. That's what that song's about. That's amazing.
There's something in that song too that I was like, what is that? Is that a synth? Is that an accordion? Like there's something in the back that's just these chords that kind of like hang. It could just be just like a key setting maybe on a keyboard, because I don't see any weird instruments on the record. It seems
There's like a noise bit too, right? Like almost like Foley of some sort.
there's a lot going in that.
Like a crash. Yeah.
Yeah, there's something else in there that had like another. Oh, there's like a really weird guitar tone in Up the Wolves too. That it's like.
I just realized that the Foley bit I was thinking of is not in that song. It's in a song on a different record. That's the other thing. You listen to enough Mountain Goats, some of it starts to kind of bleed together.
It has like also a weird guitar tone in there too. It's like doing something, whatever effect he's trying to go for on that song. It's very different.
Yeah, well, there's that like dun 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 dun, dun a bit to the rhythm of it too. That percussive sort of like almost march kind of thing, and it's got another great lyric in it. I'm gonna bribe the officials. I'm gonna kill.
That's
all the
my
judges.
favorite line in the
That-
song on the record. Like that was the one I was like, hell yeah, here we are.
I'm gonna. Yeah, let's kill all the judges. I love it. It's gonna take you people years to recover from all the. That's the Mountain Goats I like. The like chip on your shoulder.
But I put it in a
I know
song,
I'm
so it's
saying the wrong
okay.
thing right now. Yeah. Well, and I guess he talks a lot about like his songs about revenge and wanting revenge and the juvenile urge for revenge, and I think most of the songs happen to be about like the discovery that that's a juvenile wish and that it's not the way you should be. But he has a sympathy with the lost. You know, he in his songwriting, he has an empathy for people that feel like they have no more options, and so they do desperate things. And that's where my heart is too. So I always
and when it's
always
political,
appreciate
it's
that.
something else entirely. So that's called revolutionary.
Yeah. Well, that's the thing. I think a lot of John Darnielle's songwriting is like this. It's like punk rock ideas, but like shrunk down into the little personal narratives, into the little pockets of everyday life where we find these things, and the stuff that's going on behind closed doors and underneath the surface of things. You know, and I don't know. I just think it's neat.
Well, I think I think that's a perfect closing statement. They're just neat. We're coming up on a little bit of a crunch here, so let's well, thank you for choosing this record, because I don't know that, like, I'm sure somebody would have considered selecting a Mountain Goats record, but I don't know that we've ever had the opportunity where someone would have selected at this point. So I think they are a big enough band of interest to enough listeners that it's like we're checking a big one off the list, you know, like as far as artists.
I think that's ultimately why I chose it, is also like, it's not my favorite Mountain Goats record. I can name 4 or 5 Mountain Goats records I like even more than this, but like this is also special to me, and I also don't know that you're gonna get a lot of people that are gonna pick a Mountain Goats record, so I'm like, I'll do it. 2005 Sunset Tree, pretty defining record for them. You know, this year is arguably their probably most beloved song by their fans, so here we go. That was it.
I'm glad to have dug on them a little bit more and actually understand a little bit more than I did before. So, thank you for selecting this album. Let's tell everyone where to follow you, as far as like get where your podcasts are from, all that kind of good stuff. Like, do your promotion here.
Okay, well, you can follow me at Andy_Sell, SELL, as in sell you on the Mountain Goats. On Twitter. I'm also on Instagram. I think that might just be Andy Sell. I don't think there's an underscore there. It's Maybe there is. I don't know. I always forget. But I am on Jesus. Oh, at Ghoul History on Twitter is the account for Ghoul School. Look Good #4 Boys on Twitter for Look Good for the Boys. You can also follow Look Good for the Boys at Look Good for the Boys on Instagram, and you can find us where podcasts are. Don't go looking where podcasts aren't.
Last thing we
next.
always ask. We stopped doing it for a while, and I wanted to bring it back because the world is horrible, and I feel like we should do this more often. What is a charity or a nonprofit that you'd like to bring some attention to?
Well, my partner actually works for People Serving People, which is a shelter in Minneapolis that is dedicated to helping families experiencing homelessness, and they run like education programs, and they do a thing every December for the kids. Partnership with the Minnesota Vikings of all organizations, and they in September when school starts up, they do a back to school fresh or something like that, back to school event where they take the kids and get them haircuts and new clothes and school supplies and backpacks to kind of cut down on the stigma that that some of them may receive going to school. It's right now.
Yeah.
We got to fucking fix something.
Yeah, unfortunately.
I mean, look, we got to fix several things. But I think the unhoused get overlooked a lot, and people experiencing homelessness are more people are experiencing that every day now. And so I'm really proud of her for working for them, and I think that organization is doing good things. Like, obviously, there's going to be problematic elements to approaching things like this at all times. So I don't know. Look, we're going to cut that off now. I don't know where I'm going with it.
I'll put that in the show notes.
So People Serving People in Minneapolis.
Again, thank you so much for doing the show. We had a blast. This is one of the longer ones we've done in a while, so this is a fun one.